I'm gonna hide behind the mountain. Where the children perish, don't blow. I know that Jesus is the mountain. I know that Jesus is the mountain. I know that Jesus is the mountain. Where the children perish, don't blow.
Spare the rod, you spoil the child. That's the scripture. And also, train up a child in the way he should go. And when he grows old, he won't depart from it. You know,
that takes
train him up.
That takes a lot of effort. I mean, raising a kid isn't easy. I'm a witness.
But you have to do it.
All right.
I mean, it's your child. Father, mother, both. All children have.
Well, when I talk about culture now, culture and heritage, one thing they have done an amazing job of is we have a family reunion every year, right? And so, like, we get together, you know, and like all of our cousins from all over the place. Yeah, like we are all there.
Make it your business to be in their business. A lot of parents let them go way too soon, you know, to give them a phone and let them go in their rooms. They're quiet, they're out of the way. It's easier for you. But they have access to things that you're not aware of all the time. And whether it be pornography, all these things that shape their mind and their thinking.
Happy Father's Day. I'm Ed Geths with One Vision Relationship Coaching, and I'm here on this Father's Day with 3 other great fathers, great men, guys that I respect. Happy Father's Day to my father, to my brother, and everybody in my family, but it's always good to be around good men, good fathers to bounce ideas off of, get into our heritage, talk about how we are preparing the next generation, and to just appreciate what fathers bring to the table. We get a lot of bad raps in the media. There was one comedian who said, you know, Father's Day as a holiday is like the 15th.
That's right. Way down the line.
Way down the line, which means Halloween and Columbus Day.
Arbor Day.
President's Day.
President's Day gives more than fathers. So I'm here to make sure Father's Day moves up a little bit in the ranks, and, you know, let's just have, you know, just open discussion, you know, and guys, you know, feel free to say whatever's on your mind, you know, and let's chop it up. This is my father in love right here. This is Larry Dobie Fouch,
Senior,
who has 4 children and has done a wonderful job. But even though he has 4 children, he's been like a father to everybody in the community. Every time I go around Hartwell, they speak about Mr. Fouch and what he's done for people as a teacher, as a mentor, as a supervisor, and just an overall neighborhood watchman, as you say. We got Earl, my brother-in-law. That's right. My brother-in-law right there, and Kenya Fouch, coach, administrator, AD. So I'm gonna start off with the first question to everybody, and you don't have to answer all the questions. We just gonna, again, have a good dialogue. Just talk a little bit. How old were you when you became a father, and in what way did it change your life?
23 years old when I had my first child, and very excited because I had, even in the high school, I dreamed of a family. Getting out of college, getting a job, getting married.
Oh, so you
married my high school sweetheart.
You wanted to be a father.
Oh yes, I really did. And then, and I wanted a son so he can inherit my name.
Okay.
So I wanted a boy, but it didn't matter that much. But I did have my preference was the boy, and so lo and behold, at 23, had our first child.
The first boy.
Larry Earl Fouch.
Yep.
Junior. I just couldn't wait. Yeah.
Okay.
And it really impacted our life because I had to make some changes on my priorities.
And for me, I was 34 when I had my first, and another namesake, Larry Earl Fouch III. And for me, Trez Fouch. And for me, Mama had actually kind of explained it to me before, but you really realize it once you look at that kid, is that now you're secondary and that kid's needs are priority. And so that was the thing I noticed. I had a lot of dreams about, trucks and boats and things I wanted to do, but all of it was secondary at that point.
Yeah, I'm like the black sheep, brother. I have one child, but I was 20 when he was born. I was in college.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And I was playing college football. And and was in a kind of a transition. I started off at Georgia Tech and then I left and I was in junior college when Cameron was born. And it changed things because it kind of determined what my options were after that. Because all of a sudden, schools that were far off, they weren't an option anymore. Because I knew I didn't want to be far away.
Well, I'm different from all of you because all of you guys had sons to start. I had a little girl the first time, and something about a girl that
Thank you, man. Thank you.
that really, really changes you and makes you think about what you are to her. Like every interpretation of a man she'll see in the future will be a reflection of you, how you treat her, how you love her, how you act in front of her. Right. So I had to, because I still had a little bit of the world, as they say, in you, and I had to make some changes.
Just back then, you ain't got none in you.
No. I'm saved,
that's all
sanctified,
gone.
and filled with the Holy Ghost.
I got you.
See, I've always heard about having a daughter. I don't have a daughter, but they say that when you have a son, you see your son and you realize, man, I will die for my son.
Right.
But if you have a daughter, it's like, man, I will kill somebody.
That is absolutely true. Here's the deal. Now, everybody ain't got the answer, but I would like to hear somebody's take on this. We have these babies that we have to provide and care for. We got to go to work. We got to spend time with them so we can teach them things. And, sometimes you still have hobbies and likes or things you like to do that's just for you. What is your advice of how to balance all of that, or do you sacrifice some of that? How do you balance work, family, personal time?
Well, what I had to do, of course, first in my life, most priority is God. I put He's first there. Absolutely. And Dorothy was my second priority, and then the children. And it changed because you have to balance everything, especially with even with boys, and then girls. You have to. It's different. So you definitely have to learn how to manage your time to take care of everything.
Right. Yeah, I know. Like just growing up, if there was a stress point there, like we never knew it because they always he coached all of our little league teams. Wow. They took us on vacations, even if it was somewhere close. Like we spent a lot of family time together. So yeah, if they were really having to juggle things, and I'm not saying that they didn't, we never felt that.
That's the key. Is that if you're juggling, the kids don't feel that juggle. I like that.
I know Daddy used to work long hours, but we cut the grass on Fridays, and then Saturday mornings for a little while, if he didn't have to go in, we'd take off and do something then. And if not, then he had to go in at 7 and get off at 12. He said, well, we'll go as soon as I get off. You kind of knew that there was always a window each week where you're going to get to do something fun.
In the spring of the year, they went Friday afternoon, they have the grass cut. So Saturday morning, we wake them up during the week to go to school. Saturday morning, they wake us up, ready to hop on the boat, got the reels ready to go fishing. That was Saturday morning. That was life for us, Saturday morning. That's what we went to fishing.
In what ways do you actively, and I know you can answer this, promote and instill a relationship with Christ into your children?
You have to live it first.
Yes.
You have to live it, and then you have to just keep scriptures right in front of them. You have to read the Bible, just read scriptures to them, and you have to pray. Teach them how to pray. And then eventually, they're going to catch on, and of course they did. He's right. That's very genuine. They prayed with us and prayed for us. We saw them. We saw them pray. They walk the talk, and that made it easy. But it also set the example. Right. That is a standard. Absolutely. That you live it.
There's nothing else going to be taught before that.
Yeah, no, and they co-parented well. Mama was a teacher, so she was off all summer, and she would and give us certain Bible verses we had to learn throughout the summer. We had to memorize the books of the Bible in order, just certain tasks that we had to do every time we sat down to eat, and we always did as a family.
Now, I may be saying this wrong. Tell me about this. Was it sword
drill?
Yeah, sword drill. Y'all, when y'all speak of it, y'all speak so intimately about it. And I was like, man, this
was super competitive.
Yes,
really more competitive than it should have been for a youth church setting, but it was really competitive.
And what it is everybody has a Bible, and you hold the Bible and the
not the technology Bibles, an actual book.
Actual book
of Bibles.
Yeah, and when somebody will give a book, chapter and verse, and then the first person to find it and stand up and start reading it, gets a point for their team.
Wow.
So the real benefit comes in knowing the order of the books about.
Absolutely.
Like that.
Knowing where they are.
Yeah. So somebody just stands up and says Matthew 6:12, and it's like,
Then they say
go.
go.
When you got it ready, got to hold your Bibles. And
One
then
hand.
charge.
You
Say
take
charge.
off.
Take off, you go.
Couldn't have the Bibles with
So you
tabs.
finish, stand
Had the books tabbed.
oh yeah, that definitely would be cheating. Boy, that'd be
Yeah.
much easier with this thing, huh?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Siri. All right. Outside of that, obviously, the foundation is God and Christ and Scripture. Now, how do you instill culture, heritage, and identity in your children's lives? I mean, we all sit here as Black men, as Black fathers, and we know the trials and the attacks that as Black men we face just with that. What are you teaching your children about that to, I guess, instill
About
that
the
sense of-
culture.
Yeah.
Well, when I talk about culture now, culture and heritage, one thing they have done an amazing job of is we have a family reunion every year,
Oh.
right? And so, like, we get together, and like all of our cousins from all over the place. We are all very close.
This makes me happy that I married into this family. that I look forward to that family reunion. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
I mean, so just culturally, like we know. And then he knows, family from
Everywhere.
Yeah. We're like, man, who? We're like, yeah, that's my great auntie down in Lincoln. Just okay. But yeah, so they did a really good job of making sure we knew who our family was, who the elders were.
Right.
And so we have a really good idea about where we come from.
Good.
And what we wanted to do, we wanted to be sure the young people got involved. I mean, because, eventually the older people are going to kind of move off the scene.
Yes.
So what we started doing at the family reunions, we made it a whole weekend, and we had basketball competition, softball competition, because we wanted to get the young people involved.
Absolutely.
And they became so close, and they're close today.
They are.
Cousins, they have cousins.
They have their first cousin.
It's cousins. Sure.
Yeah.
So all my nieces and nephews, they just came together, and children.
Yeah.
And my perspective is a little unique in that because I'm the firstborn.
Yes.
I was born in 71. Hart County desegregated in 70.
Oh, wow.
And so my parents went to segregated schools and colleges. But I can remember going back to, my dad went to Morris Brown.
Yes.
My mom went to Fort Valley. But we would go back to Morris Brown to the homecomings and get to see, the fraternities and sororities doing their thing, and the bands and the whole culture, black culture of the South.
Yeah.
And get to experience that.
My first time working at an HBCU, I saw that. So, I saw where you come from, how rich that tradition is.
That's right. And the pride that's there, because there's a lot to overcome. I mean, if you can imagine living during that time, that's, certain things are illegal, like walking into a building, that's a lot to overcome, but it's they did a good job with me anyway, exposing
you to that.
to that, and then speaking on it, speaking on the struggles that people had to go through for me to have the opportunities that I have.
Right. So you had no problem sharing with your children, of course you lived longer than any of us, the civil rights struggle, the Jim Crow laws and all that. Like how did you relay that or teach that?
Well, we just explained it, and I gave them, went back to, I talk about my experiences coming up with sharecropping, with 10 children, sharecropping on the farms, working since I was 3 years old.
What is sharecropping for people that are still, because I'm telling you, there's still young people that when you say sharecropping, they'll be like,
sharecropping, you didn't own your own land. You rented the land.
Okay.
And you grew the crops and everything, but then you had to pay rent, but it's basically, you work to just and just you work for pennies,
Wow.
and you earn enough for food
Wow.
and clothing just to make. We were out of school 80 days a year, all up until my 8th grade year.
Wow.
My dad got blind, and then we were able to go to school. But we were out 80 days a year picking cotton. Everybody
missing 80 days of school.
Yeah, we missed 80 days a year.
Wow.
Out of school. So we had to, when we got back in.
So you're not getting the same education as
everybody in the country, all of the country people.
Wow.
You know, we farmed.
I didn't know that.
All of my family, the Ramses, the Ruckers,
right.
The Fouches, the Gumbys, you name it. All in Newburgh, the Clarks, everybody worked. You know, the kids were out of school.
And I was just understood.
They didn't drive a bus. They just only just a handful of people went to school. Wow. Some of the girls that were high schoolers, you know, they got a chance to finish, so they just drove a car. Bus driver just drove a car and picked everybody up.
Well, let me brag on you a little bit then, because if I'm not mistaken, because you the one told me this, with sharecropping and missing 80 days, you were valedictorian of your high school. Right?
Okay, now that came about because after my 8th grade year,
right,
then I was able to go to school, start my 9th grade year.
Okay.
So then I look back and at the kids who had that opportunity, who didn't have to farm,
right,
and they were just, you know, they were studying, and I said, well, I can do the same thing now. So I matched them up, and then I studied every day.
Wow.
Because I wanted to better myself. Plus, Dorothy was 9th grade, and I wanted to keep up with her. So I stayed with her. And then it got real serious when we started talking about marriage and all that. Yeah. Talking about getting married. Then I said, oh man, I got to step up. So I was able to be close. She had a good average, but I had to beat her out, and then I had to beat another guy out to get the top spot. But yeah, I had to work hard. I studied. I really did study.
Talk about value in education.
Yeah, I really studied.
Can you describe any particular experiences or conversations you've had with your children that relate to racial identity and addressing racial inequalities? Now, I know you just said you talk to your children. I guess this is more for me, Kenya, and Earl. You know, now that we know what they went through and what he explained to you guys, is there anything that you guys now in raising your children that you've had to have conversations or any incidences that you were like, man, here we go again. Let me explain. And I'll start off because I can remember when my oldest son DJ, when Trayvon Martin, when that case came about. When you think kid, I think he was just 8 or 9, and I mean it's over the news. You know, you'd be surprised, you know, what kids can hear. So he knew that a kid had got shot, and I guess in his mind, well, somebody gets shot, they should go to jail. And then when the trial was announced, the verdict was announced that the George Zimmerman was found not guilty, it was like he climbed up and sat in my lap and just kind of laid his head, and you know, he was looking at me and was like, why didn't he go to jail?
He felt that.
Yeah, he felt that, you know, and so that was when I remember that. And then we gotta have a talk, you know. So that was it for me. What about you guys?
Yeah, unfortunately, Cameron is mixed race.
Yep.
His mom is white. So I had to have the conversation with him very early. Because I was telling my dad just yesterday, like, there was a time when, like, we weren't together,
right?
And so we would meet, and I would get him, or you know,
right.
And so we met one time at a Longhorn parking lot in Anderson, and we were just standing out in the parking lot, and a truck drove by, and they slowed down so they could make sure that we heard him screaming "nigger lover."
Wow.
Okay. And Cameron was there. He was about 4 years old, but he heard it, and he was very aware during those times. So so when we got in the car, he was like, so like, what is that? Like, he's like,
of course he heard.
What is that? I mean, he's Brielle's age. You know how observant she is.
Yes.
Right. And so, he said, just what does that mean? And so we had that discussion then at age 4.
At age 4.
Yeah. And Trey has started driving. He's 18 now, so he's been driving a couple of years.
Right.
But definitely the whole traffic stop procedure and where to put your hands and stay calm, aware, respectful. You know, we've definitely had that talk in depth. And I know this experience, Kenya's had this same experience, similar experience. At Walmart in Stockbridge, late one night, I left, and the older white lady walked out in front of me just ahead. And it just happened that we both parked out pretty far near each other. And so while we're walking out, she starts glancing back at me, and instantly I caught on to what she was probably thinking.
Yep.
You know,
She's
here's
nervous.
a big black
Big
guy
black man.
following me.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
She had no idea that I would have protected her if somebody attacked. In her mind, I was coming to get her. And so by the time I tried to slow down, but by the time she got to her car, she was fumbling with her keys, and she just turned and put her back to her car. Cause she had already made up in her mind, I was going to attack her.
You were trying to attack
Had
her.
cops been in the parking lot, she would have screamed to help.
Yep.
And I don't know what would have happened from there.
Yeah, you could have been taken away.
I just
right
try
now.
to explain to them
Just a
what
simple
other
walk in
people's
the parking lot.
perceptions may be. And for them, their perceptions are their reality.
Absolutely.
And so what they see portrayed in movies and in TikToks, it could be detrimental for us. So you have to really watch, what you do and watch other people's body language and how they're reacting to you, because that could lead to trouble, even though your intentions are good.
So I'm going to line it up a little bit, and let's talk about how you foster a strong and loving relationship with your children while also establishing yourself as a disciplinarian. Is that as a father, I feel like any father, that's just me, should be a strong disciplinarian. That's just, I feel like how it should
Amen.
be. I think everybody agrees with that. But then there's some times where that line can get too far to where the kid sees you just as that and not as a loving parent. How do you draw that line? What are your ideas of how you draw that line?
Well, first of all, fair but firm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to be firm. And we were disciplined. On the farm, you have to be, because we started picking cotton. If you could drag a sack at 3 years old, we had little sacks that we had to pick cotton. 3 years old, we started working. As soon as you were able to walk good and drag a sack, then you picked cotton. You went out.
So you
3,
telling
4,
me
and 5. So 5 years old, I was working full time.
Bree would be working.
Bree would be working. Yes, Bree would be in the cotton field picking cotton. 3, 5, 6 years old, and when you got to be 6, I mean, you were full. You were full employed. Yeah, on the cotton field. Yeah. So we started early. So, but the discipline was there. You spare the rod, you spoil the child. Yeah, we got whippings. I mean, we got if we didn't do the work, if we didn't do what we supposed to do, we got whippings. So and we didn't. And so thank God my wife was the same way. She was also a disciplinarian. Okay. I mean, she was a teacher, so she was also strong. So it really did help for both of us to be strong disciplinarians.
And they were also a lot of fun.
Right.
But they disciplined hard. I guess it's an example that they said, because I tend to follow what they did. I think my kids feel like I'm a lot of fun, right. But they also know, like, I guess there's a difference in like my expression or maybe my body language, and they know when I'm being serious and when I'm trying to have fun. It can be an on-off switch, and they understand how to respond to both.
Right.
So I'll go in there and wrestle with them, and then I'll go in there and take that belt off and tear that butt up too.
Right.
So it just depends.
It's funny. I didn't get a whole lot of whippings, but because Earl saved me from so many whippings, because watching him grow up, getting beat every other day.
I was a crazy kid.
I'm telling you, man, when I say he got a lot of whippings, I'm not exaggerating. Like, he got...
Earl Million on the same. I got a lot.
Earl got up in the tree one day with a cat. We had a cat. He'd climb up in the tree, and then he would slam the cat to the ground. Because, a cat, if you just drop a cat, if you turn the cat on his back before he hit the ground, he could be there for he's standing straight. He flipped that quick. But Earl was determined that cat was on his back.
As they say, it doesn't matter where you drop him from, he's always land on his feet. So
I'm going to test the theory out. Hey, I'm with you.
He wasn't dropping.
He threw it like a baseball.
He's going. Yeah. He said, this cat's going to land on his back.
It was a kid. It wasn't a full-grown cat.
And guess what happened? He got a whoop.
I think I got a whoop for being in the tree. I was pretty high.
Listen, I have a very similar story. Because I, like you, when you hear stuff, I don't know how deep, this is devious mind. So I finally found somebody, because when I tell the story, they're like, why would you think that? See, somebody thinks like me. When you watch like either cartoons or something, and you see, I guess when they got a sled or something, they got dogs pulling the sled, and then they'll take a whip, and they're like, much.
That's right.
Well, we had a dog. We had a family pet. We had a red wagon. And I took some of my granddaddy's fishing wire and I tied the wire to his collar and I tied him to the wagon and I sat in the wagon and I took my daddy's belt.
Yes, sir. And you got
that wagon didn't go nowhere. That dog was my dad came outside and wore me out.
Right. But you know, honestly, we got into that kind of stuff because we didn't have phones and we had to find something.
We had to find stuff to do.
That's right.
We didn't have video games like, Sega and Nintendo weren't invented yet. So
I just kept a checklist. I watched her. Okay, don't do that.
Right. Don't put electric cars.
Yeah. Turn with your children. Do you because you didn't get whippings? Do you say like, okay?
No, because Cameron was like Earl.
Oh,
like
okay.
he tested boundaries, and so and that's fine, But yeah, we had run-ins, But it's like parenting is almost coaching, teaching. Yep. There's a lot of similarities there where you have to be firm. Right. They have to know that you mean business, but they also got to know that you love them. They got to know. I know you got kids that you're coaching now.
Yes.
And it's the same thing. Like I said, he always coached our ball teams and Earl coached for a long time. A lot of similarities there. That's right. So yeah, they know that there's a lot of love there, but they also know, man, there's a line.
There's a line.
Yeah.
You cross it, you won't see it. All right. Let's talk about right now. Raising children right now in today's society. What advice would y'all give young parents now with the temptations of technology, the accessibility? I'm sure you're dealing with this in school, accessibility to vapes, drugs, alcohol, and what just seems like a decline in respect for authority. Like what would y'all have? Yeah, this definitely you dealing with this more than
And I get to deal with a lot of parents, and our resource officer says in every parent meeting she has, make it your business to be in their business. A lot of parents let them go way too soon, to give them a phone and let them go in their rooms. They're quiet, they're out of the way. It's easier for you, but they have access to things that you're not aware of all the time. And whether it be pornography, all these things that shape their mind and their thinking. And sometimes it takes a traumatic event like a vape or somebody getting sick from a drug or for them to realize it. But my advice is to make it your business to be in their business. Monitor who their friends are. Get their phones and go through their text messages. And if they have a problem with that, then turn the phone off. Some parents have an issue, being that hard disciplinarian at times. But you have to. Otherwise,
you paying for it. That's what they.
That's right.
You are paying. They're like they paying the bill.
That's right. But go through everything that they do. See what they have access to.
Yes.
See what they're doing. Then you can guide them. But without knowing,
right?
I mean, you'll lead them to the wolves.
Oh yeah. It's just like I used to. You have so many parents come up to the school feeling shocked. Like, not my baby.
That's right.
Yes, your baby.
That's right. I mean, at our school in particular, one issue is a lot of things that happen outside of school. The kids will go into Snap or do a Google Doc and have these chats and away from each other. And they have 24-hour access to each other. Wow. But they'll say things, get these things started in the chats. And then, of course, it spills over into school. Well, on the chats, you're not face-to-face with each other. Right. And when they see each other, then it's really awkward because some of them don't know how to talk to each other face-to-face. Right. Yes. And then they're terrified, both sides. Yes. And then they're wanting to go to the office and call parents, afraid to come to school, my kid's being bullied. And it's not always the case. Right. It's just that they're talking trash on these chat groups.
Yeah, because we call what? Keyboard warrior, keyboard thugs.
That's right.
Yeah.
But if I could get parents to monitor that, keep your kid out of it. If they can't stay out of it, kill the phone.
So what are some of the positive changes or advancements you would like to see regarding fatherhood and the portrayal of Black fathers in the media and in school, obviously?
Yeah, it's really more about reality. Quite honestly, we've had some, like in the media, like I grew up watching The Cosby Show and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Family Matters, Good Times reruns.
Good Times.
I mean, there were always strong Black leads in there. So that, not like superheroes, but, we were able to see it and then we had it at home. And so sometimes it was really difficult for us to understand growing up, like what's the problem with that, but with them not having a father there, which is where we recognize how important he was because he was kind of that that father figure for so many. You know, it wasn't just for us. It was everybody that he coached. It was everybody at the church. It was kids in the community.
Right.
You know, and so
He didn't just whoop us.
Right. Right. We could recognize the need for it because they all got it. You know, and so now is because of it is such an epidemic. You know, like that's another reason I feel like it's so important for them to be able to see it in school, to have an assistant principal like that, you know, to have a coach like you, that they can say, okay, I don't have a father, but at least like I know what it looks like. You know, so when they hopefully when they become fathers themselves, they'll at least have seen
what it looks like. And I agree. And I do agree that some fathers are missing. I'm not saying it's not a problem. I do feel like the media definitely hypes up the Black family structure more so than any other family. Because I feel like there are just as many missing fathers in other cultures. It's just that our culture just kind of gets the highlight of that.
Yeah, well, you know, for a lot of time you watch movies, not TV shows, but movies, and we're really just slaves and drug dealers.
Well, yes.
You know, in the movies. And so it's sometimes like what we aspire to. Yeah, like that's that image that we have in our heads. I used to hate watching movies really in school because I know I was going to be, we're slaves. I'm getting ready to,
we all played the same
That's
part.
right. That's
right.
right.
What they call thug, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
always
just
up to something.
Yeah, or we be silly. It's either we either the funny guy, the slave, or the drug dealer.
It's so important that we get back to basics. I mean, my faith is I just believe in it, and we need to get back to the Bible. I mean, you know, spare the rod, spoil the child. That's the scripture, and also train up a child in the way he should go.
Absolutely.
And when he grows old, he won't depart from it. You know,
that
just
takes
train him
effort.
up.
That takes a lot of effort. Raising a kid isn't easy. I'm a witness.
But you have to do it.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, it's your child. You know, father, mother, both. All children have.
Well, speaking of that, I mean, what role? I know this is not a question. I'm sorry for taking
take over.
What role should the churches play?
That's a good question.
You know, like because I know there are a lot of churches in Hartwell, even for a small town like this.
Yep.
But I don't know a whole lot that. And I mean, what are the churches doing? Like, what are we as impactful as we should be?
Have to have a youth program. You have to have a youth program. Now, COVID hurt a lot. COVID really did hurt. And for some reason, we're just not getting back to where we were 3 years ago. But the youth program is so vital to a church.
It is.
You look at some of the churches where just older people involved, eventually, you know, they're just kind of fading away.
Just die out.
You need a basic youth program to bring it, train everybody up. Right. Train them up while they're young. Yeah, so you need a youth program.
You know, but that requires, like what Earl said, it's hard to raise children. So that requires intentionality. Like you're not going to have a youth program just because churches are supposed to have a youth program. There has to be leadership, and you have to say, look, we want a thriving youth program. What do we need to do to be able to get them? And I wonder if we're doing everything that we could be doing.
And you have to find willing men, which is a challenge.
Hard right there.
I'm telling you this, and I understand like men have their own things and responsibilities, but you know, when like the 2 commandments, love God, love others, you have to have a heart. Even if it's just one kid, you can just choose one. When we tried to start a mentor group, the challenge was finding men who would commit to a kid. I mean, of course, there would be maybe some financial obligations there, but it was mainly time. You know, come and eat lunch. You know, take them fishing on the weekends when you take your kids fishing, or, you know, but just involve that kid because this kid has no father, needs some direction, is at a crossroads, can go right or can go left. The kid needs some help. Can you take this one on? It's an epidemic, like you just said. Can you help us out? And just finding those men who are willing to give of their time and resources that's hard to find.
See, because again, what you have to have is men that have had that experience. Like we know, because our father took a lot of time with us. But what if you have a whole lot of men who didn't have that experience, whose fathers weren't around, and then you're trying to convince them,
that's right,
I need you to take your time and invest in some other children who aren't yours, you know, just so we're trying to build up the community. We need you to be involved. That's a hard sell.
Yeah, 20 to 30 year olds don't. Yeah. It's hard for them to grasp.
That's right. That's a hard
And the
sell.
long-term impact of it, it's tough.
And I appreciate Uncle Kenya because he definitely shows real some love. I appreciate Granddad and Uncle Earl. You guys are essential for my children's life. You know, I always say the famous phrase, it takes a village.
That's right.
I'm always praying for the village of my children. I'm praying for the villages of your children. And let's hope we're a village to a lot of children that are going to be the next leaders in our generation. You know, each generation is supposed to get stronger and wiser. I love my family. I really do. I appreciate them sitting here and sharing stories and giving advice. I hope somebody finds this as a blessing for you to use with your children, with your family, or with just your church, you know, and continue, as he says, to trust in God. All right, keep him first and everything else will flow afterwards. Amen. Guys, I thank you. Appreciate you. Happy Father's Day. And let's go get something to eat. Thank you, guys. Yep, thank you.
All right, man.
Thank you.